From this month, Folklore Festival, returning for its third installation, will host a series of fringe shows ahead of the main festival next month. The festival, which has over the years seen a cumulative hub of artists and creatives come together for music, storytelling and lifestyle events in the folklore space. Over the next few weeks, the festival will launch, host talks, film screenings, book fairs and even children's spaces. We speak now to the festival director, who's also a musician, an incredible one at that, Pilani Bubu. Welcome to Newzroom Afrika, and thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Masechaba.
Yeah, so first and foremost, congratulations. I mean, it can't be easy, 3 years in.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Let's talk about the festival itself. Folklore, break it down in your own words.
For sure.
The definition of folklore.
100%. It's not my own words. It's globally known that folklore are the kind of oral traditions or things passed down through generation by word of mouth, whether that be various art forms, jokes, proverbs, music, rituals, just things of our culture cumulatively. So it's really about all those things that we want to kind of hold in our heritage. And it's about those things we choose are important. So within the stories and in the constructs of our society or our social contract, folklore is that thing that we all agree should live through time. So as long as it's passed down, that's what folklore is. And what the festival sought to do, and I think what I've been trying to do as an artist and as a musician first, was to use the technology of music to kind of archive our folklore within kind of music. And as a poet and a storyteller and a spoken word artist, I kind of started trying to build in stories that were meaningful from our culture, or at least talk about some of our rituals and the things that we want to kind of keep through time. And so the Folklore Festival then became that vehicle or platform where I invited others to expand this conversation or to create spaces and platforms for knowledge share, and particularly not forgetting about children and intergenerational dialogue, because that's how we kind of continue lineage and pass on this folklore.
And you're not just passing on the stories to South Africans or Africans, but welcome back. You've just come back from a world tour, essentially. Tell me more about that.
So, yes, I'm sort of taking this folklore across the world. I just came back from my Euro tour about a month. I'm very happy to be back home. And it's always around this time where I'm just ready to kind of engage with South Africans. But it went really well. Currently, I'm telling the story of our history. So looking at 30 years of freedom and what does that look like and where do we stand as South Africans. So my latest album, Naindaba, really talks to kind of inequality and the history of kind of the difference between the rich and the poor, and trying to reflect and remind ourselves that we've got so much work to do when it comes to kind of social justice. It also talks to paying an ode to some of the women who marched in 1956, but expanding that the woman's story is always going to be about how we have empathy and compassion for our children and you know, I guess space, because of Inimba, like the umbilical cord that connects us, or the womb factor. And so it kind of looks through the lens of strong South African women as well, and tells a story of how women could potentially be future leaders because we have this kind of empathy through just kind of our nature. Yeah, and then it expands quite strongly on just like protest songs and just reminding ourselves that, you know, we still have a lot to do when it comes to our own freedom, and kind of like breaking down the plight of Black people and how do we kind of impact change in our own spaces through ourselves as a people, and together through unity, and yeah, I guess less toxicity and more, I guess, what's the word? Being more together. I mean, there's little things, I don't want to talk about it, like alcoholism and domestic violence, and there's just so many sentiments of things that we could continue to talk about and change.
Some of the countries you visited include France and I believe Sweden, if I'm not mistaken. Tell me more. Switzerland, excuse me. Yeah, tell me more about where else you went and what the reception was like, especially when it comes to how the craving for our content as Africans.
Oh man, Masechaba, it's incredible. It's more than with ourselves. Whenever I'm around or kind of out in the world, it really feels like our story matters. People listen and people want to understand, not just the audience that are an audience of music lovers who are used to hearing African music from the context of dance and fun times. There are people out there who really want to hear meaningful work and really understand the then and the now. And I really have a great time when I'm touring outside of the country, because we have ears and people are concerned and they want to know. And they feel it quite deeply, do you know? Sometimes when I'm here, I think we get so busy and so overwhelmed with our station and where we are as a country that we kind of, you know, take for granted the work that it does when we do tell our stories. Do you know? I think other nations do try to come and invest in South Africa for specific issues. And so the more we talk about it, I think as artists and artivists, we do create some kind of impact. So it's really well received all the time, everywhere. And part of it, I think, as South Africans, we see ourselves as healers in the music space as well. So it's always also a healing exercise, because we're such a rich spiritual country that is translated in the music. And quite often, you know, we're the healers of the world because we have such an essence and such an ancientness that still exists here in our culture. And so that transmuted into the world actually helps people who live in these homogeneous cultures, of which they want more and they need more. So it's just beautiful on both sides, whether the artivist in me or the healer in me.
All right. Well, the healer in you, you also happen to be an identical twin.
Yes.
And the both of you just recently had a birthday.
Yes.
I saw a clip of the performance. You were just absolutely amazing. Happy belated birthday.
Thank you. Thank you.
Just in closing, I want to know more about, as you speak about, you know, being a healer, and a lot gets taken away from you because you have to give so much of yourself. You've got an interesting ritual that you practice in the mornings. Tell me more about how you plug in to prepare yourself creatively and to face the world.
Right. Well, I've been awake for as long as you've been awake, or maybe you arrived in studio at 4 in the morning. So it's about my time, 4:44.
Yeah, yeah.
I love to meditate, and I do want, you know, to make a lot of things manifest. And I think like words and creativity and that kind of thing and prayer is big to me. I also have loads of physical rituals that have to do with my craft. And I think just opening myself up as a vessel, whether that is to drain my sinuses, my nose, or get rid of any inflammation, upkeeping a particular diet and getting enough sleep. So I do take a lot of that as part of the work, because it opens up your neural pathways and your third eye, and just always keeping myself grounded and connected. The rest of it is that, you know, I think when you are someone of great creativity, you also have to increase your capacity. And with this 2-month-long festival, you know, there's so much work that is to be done. And a lot of what we're doing, building a community, this folklore community, is about connecting with people. And I find a lot of what trips us up as a people is not understanding what it requires to have interpersonal skills. And it requires quite a lot of like connection with self for me to connect with all these artists and all our collaborators. So I think a big part of it is maintaining, you know, a good sense of my inner self and inner strength. And being able to kind of hold ground and keep good relations. Yeah.
Wonderful. Okay, Folklore Festival kicks off on the...
It kicks off next week, Wednesday.
Right.
The 7th of August. We launch with a media launch. We'll have all our artists there. I'll be performing, and Nikki B as well on the decks, and just kind of sharing a lot of what's going to be happening between our playwrights, Lindley Mthembu, to our jazz musicians, Makuzeni, to Sibusile Kaba. We'll share a lot about our authors, our literature talks, and how those will be intersecting with music. We also, on the 9th of August, are marking Women's Day and have a lineup of female artists and book authors who'll be sharing their work, as well as an art exhibition. So I think that's a good place to start, and people can watch over the next couple of weeks what's coming up. And that will be on www.folklore.community and folklorefestival.za on Instagram and the social platforms.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for having me.